Thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for joining us today. It's an honor to be here today in Middletown City Hall to elevate the work of Safe Homes of Orange County and Legal Services of the Hudson Valley during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Before their husbands took their own lives in January, Amanda Pumillo and Yasmin Emanuel were murdered here in Middletown by the same men they exchanged wedding vows with. My heart breaks for them, for their families, and for the 29 women in Orange County murdered by their husbands or intimate partners since 2004. And for the many, many others who have suffered and continue to suffer from domestic violence. As Kellyanne and her incredible team at Safe Homes of Orange County know well, there are predictive indicators for tragic domestic violence homicides like Amanda's and Yasmin's. And given proper resources, potential violence can be prevented. A big part of my office's work is constituent services in the district. And just an hour ago, representatives of Safe Homes of Orange County and Legal Services of the Hudson Valley facilitated an information session with my staff and the staff of Senator Skoufis and Assemblymember Aileen Gunther, as well as the Middletown Police Department, to help us better serve victims and survivors with the resources they need when they reach out to our respective offices. So we have two giant checks to present today. During this year's state budget negotiations, I was able to secure $60,000 through the Office of Children and Family Services for Safe Homes of Orange County to assist them in filling the gap in operational needs. I also actually want to just, why don't we present that right now? We'll do it one at a time. And we're going to have Kellyanne speak in just a moment. But we're here today also to recognize the efforts of Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. And I was able to secure $24,000 in funds for legal services to provide needed legal assistance to victims of domestic violence. I'd like to thank Barbara Finkelstein for her leadership and attorney in charge, Sarah Mehta, who's here with us today and who will also be speaking. And we have yet another giant check. Where one puts these things, I don't know, but. Thank you both. Before I turn it over to Kellyanne, I just want to mention that in addition to funding, the state legislature passed a package of important measures in 2019 to protect victims of domestic violence and hold perpetrators accountable. And I'm just going to mention a few of those today. Senate Bill 2416 increases the statute of limitations to 2 years for civil suits related to injury caused by domestic violence. We also passed a law to allow alternative sentencing by judges for those who have been victims of domestic violence if the judge determines that the abuse was a significant contributing factor in the offense. Currently, incarcerated can also apply for resentencing in these cases. And finally, legislation was passed to allow a victim of domestic violence to make a complaint to any law enforcement agency in the state, regardless of where the incident took place. This protects victims from having to return to the jurisdiction where the abuse took place. I want to now just turn it over to Kellyanne to say a few words about the important work that they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator, very much. And on behalf of Safe Homes, the Board of Directors, the staff, and those that we serve, we're truly grateful to the Senator for the opportunity to right when she opened her office, made her door open and allowed us to come in and talk about many of the gaps that we have in providing direct services. Still to this day, victims should not have to choose between safety and putting food on their table. They shouldn't be bankrupt or be forced to be homeless or to have to make decisions around their safety and the ability to live a life free from violence. And much of what we do also shouldn't have to be about not being able to support the amount of need because we're limited in staffing and resources. And while there is some funding, much of what we do really requires the support of the legislator to close some of those gaps, to understand that it's complicated and complex, and the needs of survivors is diverse and not one size fits all. And most importantly, all of what we do, we are, yes, the domestic violence and anti-trafficking organization in the county, but we can't do what we do without the support and collaboration of our partners. And it's just as much the responsibility of the community and the partners that we work with to each play our role in creating a safer community. Because when we make a home safer, when we create access for victims, when we provide a place, a safety haven for children, that not only impacts the family that's been experienced that violence, but it impacts all of us in the community. And as the Senator mentioned, on the heels of another domestic homicide last week, rising to 29 women murdered, that this doesn't just impact those within the home and within the relationship. It has long-term ripple effects in the community. And I'm very grateful not only to our partners at Legal Services and the incredible work that we do together, and to our law enforcement partners, and to the mayor of Middletown, because truthfully, if everyone's not on board and doesn't buy in that we have to work together and collaboratively and come to the table, at times with different philosophies on how we get to the end product, but willing to work together to create a safer society for victims and their children and hold those who use abusive behaviors accountable, then we can start to have impact. But it will take all of us to be part of the solution. And I'm really grateful to our partners at the City of Middletown Police Department, as well as the community as a whole. I look forward to being able to have a full-time advocate in the City of Middletown Police Department. They have wanted it, and I'm very glad with the support of funding from the state, as well as the Senator's funding to close those gaps, that we will be able to make that happen as of October 1st. So I thank you to the Senator, and I thank you to all of you, and I'd like to introduce Sarah from Legal Services, the Hudson Valley, to say a few words.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Sarah Maida. I'm the attorney in charge of the Goshen office at Legal Services, the Hudson Valley. Obviously, I want to thank Senator Metzger over here, Senator Metzger, for her support. This funding is incredibly important, and the work that we're doing with victims of domestic violence, in concert with Safe Homes of Orange County, our community partner, and all of you, has been, we're just incredibly grateful. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Legal Services of the Hudson Valley and what we do, we provide high-quality free civil legal services to individuals who can't afford an attorney. In 2018, we handled more than 15,000 cases, impacting more than 35,000 household members in our 7 county service areas. Nearly a third of those cases were domestic violence cases, just to put into perspective how many people need our assistance. And frankly, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the need. So we wish we could help more individuals. And in 2018, in Orange and Sullivan counties, we handled nearly 1,000 domestic violence cases just in those 2 counties. You know, what I can say to you is that domestic violence is pervasive and all too common. Victims of domestic violence face unique challenges, particularly within the legal system, and they need victim-centered, trauma-informed representation, and that's where Legal Services of the Hudson Valley comes in. The vast majority of the cases that we handle in our domestic violence unit involve securing orders of protection or custody and visitation orders. However, our domestic violence attorneys also handle immigration matters, child and spousal support, housing, public benefits, permanency planning, and consumer issues, just to name a few. And if you aren't an attorney and you aren't working with victims of domestic violence on a daily basis, legal abuse is probably not the first thing you think of when you hear domestic violence. For those of us doing this work, however, we know that abusers are often very savvy and skillful in using the legal system to continue to exert power and control over their victim. For example, an abuser may drag the victim into court for frivolous filings or make false allegations to obtain an order of protection. It's also exceedingly common for abusers to seek custody of their children as a means of coercive control of their victim. It's these realities that highlight why the work that we're doing and the work that Safe Homes is doing is vital, is of vital importance for victims. So thank you again for your support, Senator.
Absolutely.
And, oh, I forgot. And I'm going to actually introduce the mayor.
Actually, I just want to, before we bring up, I just want to say that Mayor DeStefano and the Middletown Police Department have been working incredibly effectively, collaboratively with Safe Homes of Orange County and proactively to address domestic violence, and are showing results in actually reducing the number of cases. And so it's my great pleasure. I want to thank you for all the work you're doing and bring up Mayor Joe DeStefano. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And the chief, I will ask him after I'm done to maybe he can give you some of those statistics. And I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the presentation today. I caught part of it, and the small part that I caught was very informative. It should be no surprise that domestic violence is a complex issue that presents substantial challenges for law enforcement and the criminal justice system as a whole. The forum today was being held in a city, as Senator Metzger mentioned, where 2 victims of domestic violence lost their lives in 2019. Part of our job is to make our residents aware of what resources are available to victims, and that is why, when this issue came up, I said, who am I going to call for this information? And all I heard about was Kellyanne. It was almost like when Ben Gilman was congressman. You just referred to him as Ben. So in Orange County, when you're looking for someone to speak to about victim services, they tell me to call Kellyanne. So that's what I did. I reached out to Safe Homes of Orange County, and Kellyanne, I have a problem with your last name, and I'm sure you have a problem with mine, Castiel Larriere, for assistance. In January of 2018, Chief Owancho and his administrative staff met with the executive director, and the purpose of this meeting was to discuss a new program that was designed to provide enhanced domestic violence outreach services to the Middletown community, based primarily on the 2 incidents that happened, plus other factors. The City of Middletown Police Department, as a policy, continually reviews their procedures and programs to ensure that their police officers are engaging with residents and providing them with necessary support and referrals that are appropriate and for their individual needs. And analyzing our annual crime statistics and calls for service in the early part of 2018, our chief and his administrative staff recognized a concerning pattern involving domestic violence cases. His questions to his staff were, can we do it more as a community? And he posed these to us as elected officials also, in addition to what we have already implemented. How can we work with an organization like Safe Homes to make all victims and family members aware of the resources available? And that is the challenge. In 2017, domestic violence calls represented approximately 2% of the police department's total call volume. However, when drilling down on those numbers and doing the appropriate analyzing of those numbers, these incidents reflected, it was learned that 50% of the most serious types of assaults, aggravated assaults, occurred during a domestic violence incident. So this is a serious issue. The police department receives grant funding and other resources to address violent crime, particularly aggravated assaults. Unfortunately, traditional policing techniques have not been found to be particularly effective in addressing domestic violence-related crimes. It was therefore clear that this problem would require a more innovative and comprehensive approach. Safe Homes presented the police department with an opportunity for a partnership as part of their Risk Reduction Response Project, or RRRP. After hearing an explanation of the program, Chief, I want you to quickly realize that the RRRP would provide unquestionable benefits to the residents of the city of Middletown. The program was launched in February and continues today. The program has enhanced the safety of domestic violence victims and brought new focus to the police department's mission of reducing violent crime. The program cannot prevent every incident of domestic violence, but it does provide an additional layer of support for individuals who may need assistance. The Middletown Police and Safe Homes are meeting that challenge, but to maintain and enhance services, we need our state partners to step up with funding, and that's exactly what Senator Metzger has done today and previous occasions, both with state funding and funding through her office. This is very important work. I'd like to thank Senator Metzger and, of course, Safe Homes, Kellyanne, and Legal Services, along with all the organizations participating in today's program and presentation, for their awareness and funding that is being made available for the full-time advocate at the Middletown Police Department to address this very serious problem, not only in the city of Middletown, but nationwide, but more specifically here in Orange County. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Senator Metzger for your support in this program. It's definitely well needed, well received. At the same time, I'd like to congratulate Kellyanne and Sarah for your receiving the funding, and also thank you for all the support and efforts that you put into our communities. As you've heard, we have partnered with Safe Homes for just about a year and a half now. As the mayor said when he presented, that it was a no-brainer for us once we heard what the program offered for our community. So we immediately signed on, we trained all of our staff, and we look forward from that moment back in February of 2018 till this October, when we actually get a full-time staff member from Safe Homes to work collaboratively with us here on a daily basis in our organization. We like to say that we've seen success so far. We have seen a reduction in our domestic violence calls. Initially, we saw that we respond to the same location multiple times for a domestic incident. For whatever reason, the victim in those situations was reluctant to cooperate with us, or didn't know what to do or what our services were afforded to them. So partnering with Safe Homes, we've been able to provide that immediate service to those victims. Initially, we did see a small spike in our reporting of domestic violence, and we believe that's because we were actually providing those services to people so that they knew what was available to them, and they became comfortable with the advocates, with the officers, to be willing to report additional incidents that they initially did not report. But overall, we have seen a reduction, which is, speaks volumes to the success of the program, and we greatly appreciate their services, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to have one of their representatives work with us. Just to follow up, as the mayor said as well, domestic violence is unique. It is not something that we could impact with traditional policing. I can't assign additional patrols to a specific area or to a specific location to reduce the number of domestic violence incidents that we may have. Many of them are behind closed doors. Many of them we don't know about. The horrific incidents that you heard of earlier this year, where we lost the lives of 2 victims, both of those victims had very limited to no police contacts previously. So having the services available, making it more well-known, will hopefully save people's lives as we go forward. And once again, I really appreciate the services that you provide us, and thank you for all of your support.
Thank you so much, Chief. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Can you just briefly go over what the $65 is going to be used for?
Sure. It's going to be used to close gaps. Many of our funders don't fund 100% of all of our positions, and so it's the ability, both with the direct services and operational support, to ensure that we can be fully operational all the time and be fully staffed all the time. As well as we were in receipt of, we're also funded by the Office of Victim Services, and the grant had to be reapplied for, and we were successful in not only being able to get what we had currently had been receiving for the last 5 years, but to increase that capacity to also accommodate the fact that we are now in Sullivan County as well.
And
Which I'm very happy about, by the way, as a representative of Sullivan County.
And can you talk a little bit about, previously you have a full-time advocate at Middletown PD now?
They are hired and they are training, and then they will be full-time in the City of Middletown Police Department. And I think it's important to also say that when we went to the chief and the lieutenant about even the project, immediately had space available and were extremely eager and ready to figure out a way to work together. Initially, it was we had a full-time grant in the city of Newburgh from a different funder, and then part-time in Port Jervis just based upon space. And then trying to figure out if we could roll out some training in the city of Middletown. And I did make the chief a promise that whenever it became possible, that we would write any grant or speak to anybody we could to ensure that we could get a full-time individual. Certainly you can do a lot of the work without that person full-time, but the critical piece to this is not just the support to the community, but as the chief mentioned, these are a different type of crime. And so while you spend some limited time in the Academy on Domestic Violence, and you may attend an in-service here or there, or when you're promoted you have an opportunity to go to supervisor school, the reality of it is there's really limited domestic violence training. And when you're working with victims every single day, it is also an opportunity to be a resource and a support for law enforcement. And so not only are you doing that direct service, immediately connecting that victim at the time of the incident so they can make the most informed decision about their life, you're also more accessible for law enforcement, so that if there's something that they may want to process or ask a question about, or they saw something that they aren't entirely sure around coercive control or tactics, that they have someone to bounce something off of as well. And so it's about building relationships internally and bringing what we both offer to the table and utilizing all of our skills, training, and expertise to help create a safer community. It'll be part of the grant, but not directly. It's leveraged to support that. We are the staff itself is funded by the OVS grant, but there are other individuals connected to that grant that are gaps that it will close. Yes. And so because of the way our organization operates, though they have a full-time individual, when they call the hotline, that's not the person they talk to. They actually talk to all the other staff that answer the hotline. They also talk to the night staff at the shelter. They also may work with the court advocate to go get an order of protection in family court. And so there are multiple staffing individuals in safe homes that they will work with outside of this project. This person that's dedicated in the office will be that follow-up person from the incident, but that victim also will work with multiple victim advocates in the agency, depending on who answers the hotline and the calls. So those gaps need to be filled so that when that law enforcement officer calls that hotline, that there's always a staff member there to answer that call. That call is critical. It has to be quick, it has to be brief, it has to be thoughtful, because that officer has that call and potentially another call to go to. And so it's about getting information quick and then doing a follow-up once the officer leaves the scene to do more extensive safety planning. And so that's not done with the risk reduction coordinator, that's actually done with the hotline advocate or potentially the court advocate. You're very welcome.
And then for legal services in the Hudson Valley, can you also just go over, what the money's going to be used for?
So similar to Safe Homes, we're actually using the funding for some gaps as well. Basically, what we're using this specific funding stream for is for the individual who's going to be doing the intakes for the domestic violence victims. So essentially, it's funding one of our receptionist paralegals time, and basically what she's doing is the initial domestic violence screening. So that's what we'll be using it for.
How is that going to benefit the organization and people?
So I think, the short answer is it's going to increase the number of individuals that we can assist, right? So it's essentially we're adding somebody who's able to sort of get these cases in the door and have so that they can then be assigned to an attorney. So the process will move quicker for individuals who are victims of domestic violence, because we're often getting, 10 referrals a week or something like that, and it does take time to work through those. So the fact that we have another person who's going to be doing these intakes is going to, I think, speed up the process for everybody, which benefits, obviously, the individuals, because the sooner they can speak to an attorney, the better.
Can you give a number when you were speaking earlier about the amount of domestic violence cases in Orange and Sullivan? What was that?
So it's almost 1,000 cases in 2018 between Orange and Sullivan. The vast majority of them are in Orange. Our Sullivan County domestic violence attorney is new. We've essentially had somebody in the position for about 9 months, so I expect that that was our 2018 numbers. We've expanded quite a bit, so I expect in 2018, I expect in 2019 it'll be more. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I just want to note, these organizations they're doing such incredible work, and they have limited staff, limited time, and are probably just going around the clock. And the additional resources that we can provide can only help in expanding access to the people that need it. So I want to thank you all for being here. I also want to note there's also a full-time advocate right in Port Jervis, right? So I just want to mention Chief Warden and Mayor Kelly Decker and their support for a similar program. Okay, thank you very much.